Okay, well, we are going to get started here, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the most recent installment of our Luminary Leaders Program. My name is Andrew Connors, and I am a partner at the firm, and I guess you could say oversee our business owner practice group. And at Luma, really what we look to do, what gets us out of bed is how do we learn, how do we connect, how do we celebrate? And so this Luminaries Leaders Program, and if some of you have attended these in the past when we've been together, and we will be together again, what we really want to do is just, with people like Teresa, what can we learn from them? Because they have great lessons to share. How can we connect with one another and share experiences and celebrate those experiences, regardless of where on the spectrum they are and what success looks like for everyone? So that learn, connect, celebrate theme is something we really try and weave through all of the programs that we do. And so what I want to do is introduce Teresa real quick, and just to give everyone a layout of the agenda. I'm going to introduce Teresa. Normally when we do these programs, obviously, we have a tour of the facility that we are at. Unfortunately, that's not an option today, but we do have a video prepared to give everyone some background and flavor of Channel products and what it looks like. But with that said, Teresa Lindsey is the president and COO of Channel Products, but they don't go by Channel Products, they just go by Channel. And they are really best known in the gas appliance industry for making igniters, safety controls, assemblies, different accessories, things along those lines. If you look at her bio, there's a long, long list of accolades that she has gotten: Smart Culture Award, Entrepreneur, E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year finalist, Distinguished Employer of the Year. She sits on a number of boards. She's a pretty visible person in the community and does quite a bit of speaking. So I think we're pretty lucky to have her and have her share her insights here today. And as I've gotten to know Teresa, I think she's a pretty rare person. She is, in getting to know her, she's definitely, when I think of like a couple words that describe her, she is unbelievably compassionate, selfless, tenacious with a capital T, and courageous. And she has this never quit mindset, which I think is just really amazing. And as she kind of shares her story with all of us, I think all those words that I used to describe her will really kind of jump out, and you'll be like, oh, I totally can see that. So before Teresa, why don't you jump in and just say hello real quick, and then Annika can start the video and give everyone a tour of Channel real quick.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to participate in this event. I think that one of the best things for all of us is shared experience, right? That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And if we're fortunate enough, we get to learn from other people's mistakes rather than our own. And so I appreciate this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to chatting and catching up. I wish I could see all of your faces, but I trust that you're there, and I'm sure you're all beautiful. And I hope that you enjoy the event.
Perfect. So Annika, why don't we roll the footage real quick of Channel and let everyone get a view of behind the scenes what goes on there.
New corporate headquarters and manufacturing center is built to serve as a base of operations for the company's continued growth. The building features state-of-the-art training facilities, an innovation design center, a variety of conference rooms and huddle spaces, as well as an employee morale center, complete with an exercise facility, game room, refreshment shop, and coffee bar. Designed with attention to lighting, ambiance, amenities, and detail, Channel's new corporate headquarters and manufacturing center is as inviting as it is efficient and productive. Built around the needs of employees and customers, it's the epicenter for the company's next great achievements.
So that was brief, and I think maybe gives a little bit of a flavor of the culture which we will dive into at Channel. As we kind of get into the Q&A session, just to give everybody some background here real quick, what we will do here is Terry and I will have our discussion. And as we kind of start to get towards the end of that, if you have questions, raise your hand, and then Annika will unmute you. And then you will be able to ask a question, and we can have a nice conversation. So we hopefully can make this as interactive as possible is really what our goal is. So as we dive into this, and this is my personal favorite part, in the past, what we like to do is a little icebreaker. So we can get all the neurons firing, get the energy flowing, and it takes a couple minutes to go through this process, but I call it the Mad Minute. And it's where we just do a couple rapid fire questions to kind of be an icebreaker and get to know our speaker, Teresa, a little bit more. So first question real quick, Teresa, where is your favorite place to visit or vacation?
Easy. I'm a beach bum. I love the beach. So my favorite place I've ever been in my life has been Bora Bora. And we actually have a home in St. Pete, Florida, and we try to get there once a month. And so anytime I can get near the water, we live on the water here at Cleveland, water, sand, anything like that, that really resonates.
Got it. Very cool. If you had a theme song, so if you're a star athlete, if you're walking into a board meeting and there's music playing and it's your theme song, what would your theme song be?
There's only two. One that's more personal, called the name of it is "You Say" by Lauren Daigle, and the other one is "Rise Up" by Andra Day. And but I have to tell you that my current favorite song, you're going to think I'm crazy, is actually "Yummy" by Justin Bieber. I don't know what that makes me, but
got it. So another question. If you could have one meal with anyone living or deceased, who would it be and why?
That's a tough one. Is it a banquet meal?
No, just two people. Just two people.
Oh, yeah, I have to tell you, I have so many people that
banquet.
I have so many people that I'm curious about, right? That I admire or that I'm intrigued by. I don't even know that I could answer that with a specific person. I think we would be here for a very long time with me trying to come up with that.
Okay, so I'll let you take a pass on that one. This is what's your favorite book that you have read? Like, what's your go-to book, or what book are you reading? And I say that because me personally, like I love Brene Brown. I love how she writes and how she thinks. Yep. And so I think I've read Daring to Lead 7 times. And so a lot of our Luminary leaders often have like a favorite go-to book that they love. What's your favorite go-to book, or what are you reading these days?
Yeah, so I'm a reader. I always have been for many, many years. This is a very personal thing for me, and so without mixing it with business, but for me personally, my favorite go-to book is actually the Bible. I've been reading it for 27 years now, and it's been a rudder in storms and a kind of a guide in the smooth sailing. But I am reading 2 books currently. I'm not disciplined enough to pick up a book and finish it all the way to the end without starting another one because I'm always interested in something new. And so I'm reading a couple right now. One is Never Split the Difference. It's a book on negotiating. And then the other one that I'm reading simultaneously is called How Not to Die, which also sounds like a book on negotiating, but it's actually a book on plant-based eating and like how to be healthy and, maximize kind of your body and get everything out of it. So that's what it is. How Not to Die, appropriately enough.
Got it. No, that How to Not Split the Difference. Actually, I've heard quite a bit of people move that to the top of their reading list. I hear that's a really great book for people that are listening. We might want to put that on our summer reading list. What's your favorite restaurant in town? And what would you order at that favorite restaurant?
So my husband and I have a go-to on the east side called Crew, CRU. We love it. The food is amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. And while I try to eat primarily plant-based, my go-to there is always halibut. It's the best thing on the menu. I recommend it. I recommend Crew, and I recommend the halibut.
Okay. And now here's the fun question, or even more fun question. And given our, oh God, quarantined environment and health landscape these days, should the zombie apocalypse present itself, who are three people that you would want to confront the zombie apocalypse with?
The question I have is this being recorded? Because it could change my answer.
Maybe.
If it's, I honestly, I think I'll say what I have to say, and it comes from a genuine heart. I would take my husband. I don't know that I have three people because I think I prefer to fend for myself. I think I have more trust in myself. But my husband absolutely is. He would sacrifice anything all day long for me. He puts me first, literally every moment of every day, and I mean that. That's not just some gushy love thing. He really does. And so the way that translates to me in a zombie apocalypse is that he would be a great sacrificial distraction while I'm splitting. So yeah, I would have to pick him.
I don't know if he'd want to be picked, but your secret is safe with us. So thank you for letting us have some fun there and ask some of those questions. And so we'll kind of, I guess, let's start to really jump into the story of you. And this, we kind of transition into the, this is why we're here phase a little bit, because you have a really interesting story. And I think a lot of people in your positions, not everyone, but sometimes are born or have had certain favors done for them that maybe have gotten them into their position or gotten to where they are. And you, I think, epitomize the ask for it and earn it sort of mentality. And rather than starting and telling us about where you are today, I think it's really important to go back to the beginning, because I think that tells a lot about your personal journey. So would you mind just kind of starting out? I know you and I have had a number of conversations around this topic, but what was your life like growing up? Let's start there.
Wow, that's a really broad question, but I can sum it up in one word: difficult. I don't feel like I'm that old, but I was raised in such a way that, as maybe our grandparents or even great grandparents were. I grew up very poverty stricken. We had no money. We didn't have a bathroom in our home, a functioning bathroom. We didn't have running water. It was a very, let's say, challenging environment. And, my parents divorced when I was young, very young. And so my grandparents took custody of myself and my sister. And, it was very difficult. I was picked on. I was bullied. We were dirty. When you don't have running water, you're not bathing frequently. And when we did bathe, we bathed in one of those metal wash tubs that you would see maybe in some older movies. And as a result, being a dirty kid, my hair was dirty, my clothes were dirty. We were picked on. My hair was pulled on the bus. I remember those situations very vividly. And I just always remember recognizing my lack and recognizing how much we were struggling and how I guess just how far off I was from other kids. And so, as a result, I grew up as a young child there. Then we moved when I was about 9 to a very small town, and the town itself was not an affluent town. And so it kind of just continued to perpetuate that poverty. And although we did have running water at the time, it was some of the best days of my life to actually move into a place with a tub, no shower, but a tub and running facilities. And as a result of those things and a number of other hardships, things that maybe aren't appropriate to discuss here, but I dropped out of school in the 10th grade and really went to work full time. And so I just would describe it as something that was uncomfortable and challenging. I felt, to be very candid, if I'm being very candid here with the audience, I felt abandoned. Yes. I felt unloved. I felt unworthy. I felt like I didn't have value. Like, why doesn't anybody want me? And why why is my life this way when I see everyone else living differently? And, I've shared a story in the past that I remember this one girl in school with me, and I remember looking at her nails, the simplest of things, and her nails were so clean. They were just clean. And I couldn't understand why mine didn't look that way. I never understood that at all. And it bothered me that I had such dirty nails. And so just, you don't think of those small things in the life of a child and how impactful they can be. But I really grew up with a lot of fear, and I grew up with a tremendous sense of just I'm not enough, if you will.
So you dropped out of high school in the 10th grade. So let's start looking forward from there. Maybe tell us, what was your first job you ever had? And then this fear that has kind of been ingrained in with you from an early age, how has that helped kind of drive you going forward in your career?
Sure. So my first job really, when I dropped out of school, was at a very small diner in that very small town that I lived in. And I was a little waitress. I was 15 years old, and I was just a waitress there. My first, I guess, real job was the summer before when I worked construction. For the summer with someone laying brick and mixing mortar by hand. And that's a whole different story for a different day. But I felt like I paid my dues. And I have to tell you, I've driven past that house as a young adult. I did. And you might as well have been the Taj Mahal when I look at it, right? Because I did that. Really, all I did was mix mortar. But in any case, it was a good start and a good lesson. So that was really my first job. And then the second part of your question was, how did some of those things and those fears shape me and my career today? And I have to say it's a good and a bad thing, right? It's given me a fear of, I'm afraid of disappointing people, and I'm afraid of failure, quite frankly. And so that's driven me to be successful, but it comes with its own baggage, right? It comes with its own internal kind of, I don't want to say strife, that's a very strong word, but things that you have to overcome.
Gotcha. So construction, laying brick, which I think everyone who's on this call is kind of like, really? She was a mason? I don't see that, which is very cool. So you were a waitress, did construction. Your first job, I think, was at, tell us about kind of where your career path goes from there.
Yeah, so I was at the diner, and then I took another waitressing job that I shared in the past that has led to my Reese's peanut butter cup addiction, Sunday addiction. I took a job at Friendly's, and so for those of you who are familiar with Friendly's, I think they're a little more obsolete now. But I was a waitress there, and then look, I just continued. You used the word career path, and I have to tell you that it was many years before the word career ever really entered into my life. I always just felt like I could have a job. It never dawned on me that I could have a career. I was a poor, uneducated girl. I lived in a small town. I didn't have people in my life that were talking about college and education and a career path. And if you do this, you can get to here, and believe in yourself. I just didn't have that. My grandparents were amazing people, but they were kind of old school, and they had both dropped out of school when they were young. And so I really just didn't have those examples. So to use the word career is probably a pretty big stretch. But really what ended up happening was it was more, not so much focus on career. It was a bit more focus on, I don't want what I have, right? I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing. I don't want to be a victim of circumstance. I don't want to keep perpetuating my life in the past, right? I don't want to bring that forward into my life. I want more, I want better, I want different, and I'm not afraid to go get it. And so I was really afforded a good amount of favor and some really good stepping stones along the way that took me really into the corporate world, and then from corporate really into manufacturing and manufacturing and the corporate side of manufacturing, and then it just kind of evolved from there. And really the way I ended up where I am today I've been the president and COO of Channel Products for the last 8+ years. And the way I ended up where I am today was I was working for a private equity firm. They had recruited me away from, I was working at a General Motors facility, and they had recruited me away from there. And they put me in as a consultant, if you will. I had a lot of experience in operations, and they had put me in as a consultant with this company that they had purchased, a small company in Chesterland, Ohio, for those of you who are from the area. And I was doing some work there and quickly realized over 6 months that there were some challenges, some pretty significant challenges. And I went to the ownership and I said, look, here's everything that I've discovered in my time here. Here are all of the ways we need to improve this company. And here are the big risks that are in front of us. And they said, sitting in the meeting with the owner and the owner's son, the co-owner, and myself, and they said, well, you know what? We think it's time to do a search for a new president. And there was something inside of me in that split second that said, open your mouth. And I just spoke up and I said, give it to me, I can fix it. And I was a little lightheaded, I was nervous, and they had no reason to even consider me, no reason at all to take that kind of a chance on me. So they kind of chatted, and the son said, well, yeah, we could start a search for a president. She can kind of be the acting president while we're looking. It makes sense. The people there know her, they like her. She can spend that time during the search. And I said, no, I can do this. And the principal owner, if I can say his name here, Ron Weinberg, a dear, dear friend of mine for many years, prior to Channel even, said, no, you don't give someone a chance, tell someone they have a chance, all the while in the background, you're working to take it from them. And so he said, okay. He stopped and he paused and he thought for a moment and he said, okay. And it was that difficult and that simple at the same time. And that's how I found myself at Channel. And I didn't come without experience. I came with operational experience.
Right.
But I had never run a company, to be very transparent. And they had no reason to think that I could, other than I said that I could. And I asked them to believe in me and trust in me. And they did. They took a chance. And here we are 8 years later. So it's been a fun ride.
Where the business was 8 years ago is probably fair to say it's 180 degrees different than where it is today. So it's your
That's
first,
correct.
the first 90 days, as everyone says, it's your first 90 days in that role. You're in the big chair. What is it? How do you prioritize? What is it do I tackle? What's the important versus the urgent? And help us understand a little bit what you thought were the first things to address in the business.
Yeah, so to be candid, the first 90 days, I was just trying not to show everybody I was an imposter. I was trying to keep my cover well. The first 90 days, really, I was enthusiastic. I was excited. I had a lot of adrenaline. I had big dreams. I had never done this, but my gosh, I've read a lot of books. And so it's got to be easy, right? I'm going to make this happen. And I had a lot of enthusiasm and gusto, and I just went at it. But I was still really struggling. I wouldn't even say just for the first 90 days. I had my own insecurities that I had to overcome. It's a different topic, but I really wrestled. I had a very strong board of directors. I still do. They're some big guns in the world that they live in, and somewhat unheard of for a small company like what we have. And there was a little bit of an imposter syndrome going on, and I had a lot of insecurities. But the first thing, if I set that aside for just a moment, that's a different topic. The first thing that I really tackled was culture. I believe then, and I believe now, that if you get the culture right, the money comes. And I don't take that lightly. I don't just say that. But if you get the culture right, and then the second thing was the customers, culture and customers. If you can hit that out of the park, you can win. You can really win. And it is fair to say that the company was in a difficult position. It was on the verge of filing bankruptcy. It was really struggling. The culture was one of fear and intimidation. and really not healthy at all. The morale was low. The people were terrified, and it was an uphill battle for sure. So I knew instinctively, that I had to get that part right in order for everything else to come. And so I dove in and took some very aggressive, if anyone's ever heard me share about culture, I took some very aggressive steps in the beginning to really right the ship so that we could start heading in the right direction.
So what were some of these, like, give us an example. What were some of these aggressive steps that you took right off the bat?
So one of the first things that I did was I started having one team meetings, if you will, right? And it sounds a bit cliche, and it was 8 years ago, but I didn't know. But I called it a one team meeting, and I would get all of the salaried employees together in a room, and we would talk about how do we define culture. And this was early. I started like month one doing this. And the one thing that I did, one of the very first things I did was I asked them all. I had this idea, and I, from some of my readings and some of my own personal experiences, I had this idea that we were going to do peer reviews, but I was going to approach it in a different way because I wanted to assess where everyone was. How do they view each other? What are the gaps? And so I went into a one team meeting and I said, okay, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about what it means to be an A player. And we're going to list all of those attributes on the board. So start shooting them at me, right? And so they're saying, good communicator, someone with follow through, and it's interesting because while they were doing that, they were thinking of other people in the room, right? Oh, a A player would be this or an A player would be that. And it wasn't because they were enthusiastic about identifying an A player as much as they were talking about all the gaps in the people around them. Well, if a true A player would look like this, right? And so we filled up the board with like 36 or 37 attributes. And I said, thank you so much. This is a lot of great feedback. So from now on, we all agree as a company that this is our standard. This is what it means to be an A player in channel products. Yes, everybody nods all around the room. Yes, yes, yes. They all leave. I create these forms basically, and I come to the next one team meeting and I have a printout of all of the A player attributes that they came up with, not me. I didn't determine one of them, that they came up with, and it had a list of all of those and it had a list of every single one of their names. And next to it, it said A, B, C, D, F, and then yes or no. And what they had to do was they had to go through and rate all of their peers based on that list. They had to rank or rate all of their peers, A player, B player, C player, D player, F player. And the yes or no was, if you had a company of your own today, would you hire this person? And so they all went through, they filled it out. And
wow.
if it was less than an A player, anything less than an A player, a B or less, then they were allowed to put 1 to 2 attributes, no comments, no fussing, no complaining. I don't want to hear your stories, but 1 to 2 attributes that person had an opportunity to work on, that they felt that person had an opportunity to really tackle. And so we did that. I collected all of them. I went back to my office. I took each person's name and redid the form and said, call it Sally, A, B, C, D, F, yes or no. And then I put the total. How many A's did you get? How many B's did you get? How many C's? And then how many said yes and how many said no? Now they're anonymous, right? And then I put that document in a sealed envelope. And at the next one team meeting, I distributed them. And I said, so we're going to talk about culture and what that means. And so I really dug in and started talking with them about what it meant to truly be a strong culture and a strong team and strong individual contributors based on our core values. And so I went through all of that. And then I said, I would like all of you to open your envelopes because this is what your peers think of you. And they opened their envelopes and I watched faces around the room just flush red, tears well up in eyes. I saw anger. I saw a lot of emotions in the room that day. And then I went to work facilitating. And that was the biggest job of all. It's easy to ask the questions and get the results, but you have to facilitate your way through when you're really trying to really blow up a culture and put it back together again the way it's meant to be. You take some extreme measures. And that's where we started. And So I just started facilitating one-on-one with individuals. It is. But I started facilitating one-on-one with individuals as people were coming into my office like, I don't understand. And I would say, well, let's talk through it. What part don't you understand? And where's their opportunity? And one of the key messages I was trying to convey is that we all want to give our opinion. None of us really want to hear the opinion others have of us, right? And so, and it's important when you're in a culture that you're creating a culture that is transparent, vulnerable, because you can't have trust without vulnerability. And some of the ways to do that is to intentionally create vulnerability inside the walls of your culture. And it starts to strip away. And now here we are 8 years later, and they look forward to it. Well, let's see what people say. And they don't, I don't say joke about it. It's not a joke. It's, well, I've got things I need to work on, clearly, that type of a thing. And so it's really transformed over the years. And now the leadership is included, where we have the entire company rank us and rate us, not as A players, but on attributes. And then we track that, we trend that year over year to see as leaders, as staff, if we're improving or man, we hit a bump there and perception is changing of us, because perception is reality. So anyhow, I know that sounds extreme, but that's when I said I really was working to blow apart the culture so that I could put it back together again the right way, that I meant that.
So is it fair to say that the culture of the company has gone from one of an utter lack of trust to pretty high trusting and high collaboration with everyone?
1,000,000%. Our culture is, look, in 8 years, our churn rate at our company is less than 3%. That's it. That right there, it says it all. We don't have any turnover. The only turnover we ever have is if we choose to let somebody go. And the very few people that have left, of them, at least half of them have called and asked to come back. So I think that in and of itself speaks volumes to our culture, to who we are, how we operate, and how that trust gauge has, that pendulum has really swung from a culture that was lacking trust and was really based on fear, all the way to a culture that is so trust heavy and so vulnerable and so willing to kind of lay it on the line for one another.
So I have always found it interesting, and this is something that I tend to pick up when I talk to people, is you rarely use the word I, you always use generally we or us. And so in terms of your leadership style, it's very team focused and very transparent. And you just mentioned how it's very transparent. Share some examples of other ways at Channel how transparent leadership really helps with the culture and with growing the business.
Yeah, what's interesting is for years people have been trying to define culture, right? And everybody tries to come up with their own version of culture, or they read a book or a magazine or something, and they try to replicate a culture. And so for me, it was really important that when you talk about varying degrees of culture and how they're implemented, it really comes from the top. And so for me, it was really important that our culture had stick-to-itiveness. That it wasn't just about posters on a wall, and we didn't just have a gathering once a year where we kind of did the trust fall into each other's arms, but legitimately we live and we breathe this type of culture. And so, there are so many examples of how we operate in that, and how transparency is key for us. But what I would say is that inside of our walls, there's nothing that we hide. Our numbers are shared with every single person in our company, all the way through the janitor, the manufacturing folks, all the salary. Everybody knows everything. The only thing we don't share in our company are salaries. And if we are preparing to release someone, there's usually a very small number of people who are aware of that, just because we don't want to be disruptive. In all other cases, we are wildly transparent, painfully transparent, by the way. We've made some changes. We have expanded. We've done a lot of things in our company that some leaders would have thought it best to keep under wraps until it was really coming to fruition. And it's just not how I lead. I believe in transparency. I appreciate when people are transparent with me. I don't like four-wall surprises. And so I really tell our folks everything. I share with them when we're going to make changes. I share with them when we are making painful decisions. For instance, when we built our China facility. So we have an entire manufacturing facility in China with, depending on the seasonality, anywhere from 130 to 200 employees there. And we have another location in China as well. It's our wholly owned facility. And when we were building that, because it didn't exist when I came to Channel, when we were building that, it's scary, right? Our employees were afraid. I have manufacturing employees, and they were very concerned about that. And from the very first minute, I was very open and transparent with them. And I was also very candid with them to say, and this is how we keep manufacturing jobs in the U.S. This is what we have to do here. So while that is part of us, they're our brothers and sisters, they're part of the Channel family, this is what we have to do here to be successful and to keep manufacturing here as well. And so there's really nothing that we hide at all at Channel Products.
So you've obviously turned the business around and done really well. And real quick, I want to apologize for some of the technical glitch we just had. I think the refresh was cycling through, so I apologize if we lost video connection there. But what would you say is maybe the most difficult decision you've had to face as in your role at Channel as president and CEO? And maybe there's not one, but was there ever or was there a period or a patch that you went through in the business where you were like, this was, required an all hands on deck, and you felt like, just kind of question things?
Wow. Man, that's really a loaded question for us, because remember, we were doing, this is a turnaround, right? And for anyone with any experience turning around a company, every day is like that. And it sounds exaggerative, but it really is like that. Every day is like that. I mean, especially as a new president, I've heard my board, and I've heard other people in my peer group say they have never known a president to go through all of the things that we have gone through at Channel Products. And I say president and then we, because I was the one through all of that. We've had some new folks along the way. But as a company, wow, so many things have happened when you're trying to do a turnaround. You're hemorrhaging when you first start out, you're hemorrhaging customers. The morale is bad. The culture sucks, for lack of better words. I mean, you're just trying to pull all of that together and spin all those plates at the same time. And then, man, if I'm very candid, we had my predecessor was really unhappy that I took the role, and I was a woman, and I was a bit younger than he, and so I was sued for age and sex discrimination. That was the beginning of my role at Channel. And so from there, everything, the decisions to go international and expand globally, our manufacturing footprint, and take on international employees. I didn't know anything about China or the employees there, the people there. I had a lot of learning to do. It was a huge learning curve for all of us. The huge success story in that, as a sidebar, is that we built from the ground up that facility, staffed it, put all the equipment in, and we were profitable in the first 6 months of operation, and we've been profitable ever since. That's unheard of.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. Well, that speaks to our team, right? I mean, I have an unbelievable team in Ohio that just hits it out of the park all the time, and in somewhat under the radar kind of way. So I like to brag about them. But I will say there was a moment for me, if I'm being very transparent, Andrew, where
definitely.
I say a moment. I say a moment, a season where I remember I was getting ready to leave for China, and I was burnt out. This goes back probably, I want to say 4 or maybe 4.5 years ago, and I was burnt out. I didn't even realize I was burnt out, because there that unwillingness to quit, right? That fear of failure, all of that was churning inside of me that I didn't even realize how far I had slipped as a leader, how far I had slipped as an individual in running the company. And just before I left for China, I was starting to get weary, and the pressures were heavy, and I felt like every moment was a climb. Like there was just never any time where we were just sailing. And I was on my way to China. Just before I left for China, I had a little bit of an exchange with one of my staff members, and someone actually who I was close with. But we had a little bit of an exchange. I was very frustrated, and she was very frustrated. And I think we were both feeling the pressure. She is one of the people who had been there with me. She was one of my first hires. I think she was my first hire, actually. And so she had been there with me, and I think we were both feeling the pressure, and we were both anxious and both weary. And so we had a little bit of an exchange of words, and I got on a plane to China. And while I'm in the air, it's a 14.5-hour flight from Chicago. While I'm in the air, I get a text message from her that she resigned. And wow. and she was dear to my heart. And I didn't know what to do. And she had called the ownership and said, I want to let you know I've resigned, and not to badmouth me, but just to say we're close knit with our ownership team. And so the owner's reaching out to me, and I'm on the plane. I can't talk on the phone, so I'm texting and emailing. And I land in China, and it was near the beginning, in the first 4 hours or so of the flight. So I had a lot of time on my hands to be in that place of anxiety and concern. And I landed in China, and now I'm in a different time zone, and it's about dinner time there. It's early in the morning back here. And I'm beside myself, and I talked to my owner, and I schedule a call with the staff, right? I said, we need to talk. And I had talked with this individual, and she was very clear that, look, you've changed a little bit. When I joined the company, this was you. I mean, you were dynamic and fearless and in it, and all of these things, and you just seemed distant the last several months, and man, it's bothering me a lot, and I don't want to be a part of it. I came here because of how I felt about you and how I felt about what you were creating at Channel, and it was a very painful and sobering gut check for me. And so I remember I put together a call with the staff, and before the call, I was sitting outside by the pool in China. It had to be like 182 degrees with full humidity. But I just needed that outside headspace. And I was sitting out there, and I was thinking about all of this. And I really spent that time searching my own soul, my own gut, and doing a gut check, and really asking myself, Teresa, look, you need to come clean. You need to really decide, are you in this or are you not in it? Because if you're not in it, you're doing a huge disservice to the people in this organization. And it doesn't matter if you were in it for the first 4.5 years. Nobody cares about that. Are you in it today, right now, all in? Every bit of you, you're committed more than anybody else. As they walk through the doors, you're committed. And I spent hours out there just thinking and soul searching. I did some reading, and then when I jumped on this staff call, I said, look, this isn't a call where I ask you questions about how you feel. I think I know that. I think I can. I think I'm self-aware enough to know that now. This is a call for me to apologize to you as my staff.
Wow.
I just want to tell you how sorry I am. I have really failed and let you down. And I'm not going to make excuses for myself. I'm just going to say that I'm weary and I'm a little beat down right now. But it doesn't matter. If I'm weary and I'm beat down and I can't handle it, I need to turn the reins over to someone who can, who's fresh and vibrant and can handle it. But I'm here to tell you I've done a lot of soul searching, and I'm all in. If you'll get back on board with me, I'm all in. I'm going to do this with you. And they were very gracious, as they are, right? And they were very good. And that particular staff member agreed to stay on board, and she did, and she's still there today. And we function incredibly well as a staff. But it took that gut check. It took her it took her really sitting me down. You know, you need to sit down.
So let me interrupt you real quick, because I think this is a very relatable place where people, you know, a lot of successful people who are listening to this call and watching us right now end up in that place where you push really hard, you run at a high tempo, and you get burned out and don't realize it sometimes. So when you got there, and I hate to say, like, what did Teresa 2.0 look like, but how did you kind of like pivot at that point and say, this is what I need to be this is what I need to do to be all in going forward? How did you change?
Probably the number one thing is I had to be present. And I don't just mean there. I mean, I needed to be there, mentally there, emotionally there. They needed to know, they needed to feel that I was there, that when I was sitting in a room with them, when I was in a meeting with them, I wasn't just listening passively and offering some quick suggestions, but I was in it. They needed to see me re-engage in a way with some vigor, and they needed to hear me apologize. You know, they needed me to say, overall to everybody, look, guys, man, I checked out for a little bit. This has been hard. This has been a really rough road. And I checked out, but here I am. And we're going to do this together. And I asked the question, is everybody in? Are we all in this together? And they said, yes, let's go. Let's get them. And so I think being present was really the number one thing. Because mentally, when you check out, people know it. When you're sitting across the dinner table with somebody and you're chatting with them and they're just mentally not present, you know it. You feel it. You feel less important. You feel less valued. You feel like they're disinterested. And that's the message that I was sending. And so it really required me re-engaging. And so I think that was the key thing.
Got it. Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really, that's hard for a lot of people to be that self-aware and that vulnerable to kind of, you know, stand in front of your leadership team or peers and colleagues and say, hey, I dropped the ball, or I'm not all in, and I haven't been, but I'm recommitting. You have a great story. I think it's a great story because kind of one of these, you're a very driven person. And so one of these themes throughout your life has been, what are you insecure about and what fears do you have? Whether that be, you know, your education background and dropping out of high school and at 10th grade and then going back to school and so on. You've been, I think a lot of our luminary leaders and people on this call would agree, genuinely successful people tend to do a really good job of naming their fears and insecurities. And rather than running away from them, they run towards them. And I think you've done a good job of that. You have a great story that I think I like hearing it, but about when you were at the board meeting. Do you know which story I'm talking about? Yeah, would you mind sharing that story? Yeah. I think that's a great story.
Yeah, and let me be clear, it wasn't just one board meeting, it was all of them until the owner called me out. So what would happen is when I was initially in my role, actually not early on when I said my insecurities lasted well into the early years of my role, I would go to board meetings, and as I had mentioned before, my board is fierce. They're a powerhouse board for a small company like ours. These are men that run billion-dollar companies or divisions. They are impressive almost in every sense of the word. And so you can imagine for a new president, at the time I had my bachelor's degree. I didn't yet have my master's degree. And these are all guys who graduated from Harvard and Dartmouth, and, Yale, you name it. And so it was always very uncomfortable. I always felt less than. And so when we would have board meetings, we always had cocktail hour before the board meetings, right? We'd have a board dinner, or the night before, I would say. The board meeting, the night before, we would have a dinner, and we would have cocktail hour prior to that. And so cocktail hour lasted an hour, and then we would start dinner. 100% of the time, I would go, and I would try to milk it out and go as late as I could into cocktail hour. Mind you, I'm the president of the company. I should be there the entire time, talking, socializing, greeting, entertaining, doing all of that. But I would wait until the last minute to go. And then when I would get there, I would go in, I would set my purse down, I would say hi to everybody, and then I would go hide in the bathroom. And there were times when I would be standing in that bathroom and I would be teary-eyed and really milking it out as long as I could until we were going to sit down to dinner. And so I did that a number of times. And after one particular time that I did that, our owner and my boss called me after the dinner and said, I want to tell you that I'm really upset about something. And he is as level as the day is long. He doesn't even move when he's upset. And he said, I'm really upset about something that I want to talk with you about. And he said, you understand your role as the president of the company, correct? And I said, yeah, and I got it. And so he went on, and basically to summarize the conversation, he really chastised me and said, you have a responsibility. So then I was very honest with him, and I finally broke, and I said, look, I'm just insecure. These guys, they're just, what do I even talk to them about? I'm not even on the same wavelength as them. They've been doing this for years and years and years. They're brilliant. They're all very affluent. They're multimillionaires. I can't relate to them on any level. And he was very clear with me that, listen, you have earned the right to stand in a room with those men. You've proven yourself. I gave you the opportunity, but you ran with it. You picked up that ball and you killed it. And you have earned the right to stand in a room and go toe to toe with these guys on any level, in any way whatsoever. And that was really a breakthrough moment for me. Along with, by the way, if I could just dovetail for 1 second, when this is a pivotal moment, when I was being deposed for what I had mentioned, the aforementioned hearing, right? Where we were being sued for age and sex discrimination. When I was being deposed for that, I was sitting in the room with the two attorneys, and the one attorney happened to be on our board of directors at the time, and a very close personal friend for many, many, many years of our owner. And mind you, at the time, I'll preface it by saying this, I had never told anyone that I dropped out of school in the 10th grade. I never talked about it. And especially among these folks, because these were the Harvard and Dartmouth and Yale guys. These are Georgetown. Yeah, so I had never talked about dropping out of school. As a matter of fact, in different occasions, I had heard different people make comments about people who got their GED or, oh, yeah, I'm not even going to, type of thing, or where they go to school. And so I just would never go. I wasn't even going to go there. I'm sitting in this meeting with the attorneys, this prep meeting, and they said, okay, Teresa, they're going to try to discredit you as the president of Channel and really prove that you're not fit in a lot of ways. And so we're going to start, and we're going to cover everything, all the questions they might ask. But we're going to start by you talking about your education. Mind you, I'm sitting in the room with one of my board members. And we're going to start by talking about your education. And they said, tell us about your high school. What years did you go to high school, and what year did you graduate? I couldn't lie. I'm being deposed, right? I couldn't even stretch it. I was being deposed. And so I immediately hung my head and started to cry. And as the tears were pouring down my face, they were shocked, right? Like, who cries when you're asked, where'd you go to school and what year did you graduate, right? Nobody gets that emotional. And I began to weep. And I just thought, well, here it is. I'm going to lose my job. Once they know, they're going to fire me. And so I picked up my head and I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I never graduated from high school. I quit school in the 10th grade, and here's why I quit school. And I had to go to work full time, and I'm sorry. And I feel like a failure, and I feel like a fraud, and I feel like so many awful things. And I put my head back down, and I was still crying. And the director reached over, who was an older gentleman. He's still alive today, but an older gentleman. He reached over and he took my arm. And I'm talking, I was most afraid of him of all my directors, because he was a cutthroat attorney, really smart, really good, and had very high standards. And he reached over, he grabbed a box of Kleenex, put them in front of me, and then he reached over and he put his hand on my arm, and he said, pick your head up. I'll never forget those words. Never in my life. It so went right to the core of me. He said, pick your head up. Dry your eyes. You are the American dream. You are the definition of the American dream. Being handed difficult situations and overcoming them and becoming successful, that is the American dream. So you dry your eyes, you stop crying, you pick your head up, and you remain proud of who you are and where you've come from. And fundamentally shift my life on its axis when it comes to those things. So
I love that story, and I hope everyone listening loved that story too. That's a great story. A lot of other things we can get into here. I want to pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions. So I think there's a raise hand button somewhere on the screen here. And so if anybody has any questions, hit the raise hand button, and Annika will unmute you, and you can ask a question. Any questions out there, Annika?
I don't have any yet.
Well, I have a couple more questions here for Teresa, and so if there's any questions, just jump in on us here. So okay. My question for Teresa also is here, as we kind of start to come full circle a little bit, how would you define success in your life? And I'm thinking, and I guess in your life and in business, and because you've accomplished a lot on both fronts, and I'm curious, do you look at that differently now than maybe you would have in 2012 when you first, took over in your role?
Look, I really believe that that success is defined as being a difference maker. If you're making a difference in the lives of the people around you, be it your employees, your kids, your spouse, your significant other, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your customers, whatever that looks like, if you're making a difference in people's lives, to me, that is how you define success in life. I mean, for all of us to say there's a certain point when you have arrived, like I've arrived at that place, that pinnacle. If you're a leader, you've never arrived, right? You just never get there. So you're always striving. You always want to do better. You want to be better. And so I think as long as you can see, for me, I really get excited about seeing a difference in people's lives as a result of something I've said or done. And it's not because I have a big ego. It's because I believe in change. And I believe that if people have invested and poured into you, you should give back. I also believe in that saying that a vision without a plan is just a hallucination. And so I really think that, I believe you have to have a good vision for most areas of your life, by the way, whether it be personal or career. But I believe very strongly you have to have a plan. Like we have a plan for our marriage, and I mean that. My husband and I talk about it. What's the plan for our marriage? What is the kind of the life goal and the mission of our marriage? How do we want to make a difference in our marriage and the lives of one another and others? With our kids, there's a plan, right? What do we want for our kids? What is that legacy that we're leaving? There's a plan for my career. I'm looking out to 5 years. I have a plan for channel, 5 years, 10 years. You have to have a plan. It's not enough just to have vision or dreams. In order to really get there, you've got to put it down. And I think most leaders know this. I think it's something that comes somewhat naturally to leaders is, putting together a plan and executing on it. And I think that's really important. But I think all throughout that plan for me personally is really about making a difference. How can I make others' lives more fulfilled, happier, safer? Growing up, feeling so unsafe as a child has put this instinct inside of me to make people feel safe. I want my husband to feel safe with me, that I'm a safe place for him. I want my kids to feel that way, of course. I want my employees to feel that way. I want my employees to feel like Channel is a safe place for them. It doesn't mean we won't have ups and downs. It doesn't mean there won't be changes or challenges. But overall, it's going to be a safe place for them as human beings. And I really believe in that.
Gotcha. That's awesome. what we also tend to find in a lot of our Luminary leader speakers and just other great leaders in general is there's always been one, maybe two people in their life that have had a almost indelible, significant influence on shaping their thinking and being supportive of them and so on. And who are those people in your life?
Yeah. Man, I have to tell you, so you probably got a good indication of all the way in the beginning when you were asking me kind of those rapid fire questions. My faith is really important to me. And so the people in that community for me have always been pillars and anchors for me. They keep me grounded. They keep me focused. They keep me in check. They keep me lifted up. They serve a big purpose for me in a lot of ways. But, and of course, my family, my kids, I learn from them all the time. And I know I'm saying cliche things. If I were to pick out one person, it's hard to narrow it down to one because I feel like I'm doing a disservice to many, even as I mention a specific name. But if I were to mention one person, it would be Ron Weinberg. He's the principal owner of our company. I've worked for him at Channel for over 8 years, but I've worked for him in total almost 12 years. And he's a colleague. He is a trusted confidant. He is my boss. He is a friend, and he has become family to me over the years. Family, I have to say, just because we have all the other elements and dynamics to our relationship does not mean he would not cut me loose tomorrow if he thought it was the right business decision. He would do it gently and lovingly, but he would. But he's like family to me, and his family, his wife and his son, Chip, they're like family to me. And he gave me a shot. Right? And I've always believed my entire life, I just need somebody to give me a chance. If you give me a chance, I am going to rock this thing. And he did that for me. And man, if he never did another thing for me in my entire life, that fundamentally changed the course of my life forever and ever. My career, my children's lives, my husband. I met my husband through my career. Just so many things are the result of that one man. And that's not the only thing he's done for me, by the way. He's been a tremendous mentor and guide and help in so many different seasons over the last 12 years. So I would say if I had to give kudos and a shout out right now, it would be to him.
Gotcha. Well, I think everyone would probably agree with the following statement that you have earned everything that you've had, and Ron's been a great supporter for you, but you have definitely kind of had this never quit attitude, and obviously you plan in every single facet of your life. I'm sitting there going, man, I don't plan enough. Geez, I got to sit down and start planning. So I want to check in with Annika again real quick. Annika, any other further questions, or anyone out there have any questions before we kind of start to wrap things up?
Yeah, we don't have any questions.
I'm looking for a hand.
But Kristen Lucas, our Chief Marketing Officer, is asking for Teresa to talk a little bit about the language that Channel uses, the thrilling and wildly obsessed.
Yeah, sure. So look, I don't do anything small. I mean, go big or go home, right? So we have a couple of things when we talk about our customers. It's really twofold. And we have internal customers and we have external customers. And our external customers are the obvious, right? They're the folks that we serve outside of us, that we sell product to, that we do business with. And then our internal customers are our employees. And so we have a saying that we actually trademarked it, registered it. It's wildly obsessed with thrilling our customers. And we have a website, wildlyobsessed.com. And if you go there, it's really a landing page and has some things, and it'll lead you right to our website. But we are wildly obsessed, and we believe in thrill. So on every level, whether it's employee customers or it is external customers, doing things right, being kind, on time delivery, quality, whether it be a quality work environment or quality products, that's just the price of admission. And so it's not enough. We believe in thrill. And what does that look like? I mean, we take that pretty much to an extreme at Channel in a number of cases. I'll give a couple quick examples. We did
yes, do so.
an ice cream bar. Yeah. Yeah, so we did an ice cream bar for one of our customers. We just called them up and said, hey, we're coming in. Don't tell anyone, but all your employees. We went in, we set up a whole ice cream bar for 100% of their employees. Channel employees went in and served, gave away American Express gift cards. We did a game day thing where we did this college game day. We had all of our employees in our game room in kind of game day, our channel swag, if you will, and foam fingers and eye black and pom-poms. And we featured our customers. We featured all of our top customers, and they held up signs, and we loved whoever the customer was, and did it like a game day setting with commentators and things like that. We have done, as far as employee thrill goes, we've done a number of things internally. We do a lot for thrill, but we like to give back as a company. We consider that part of our thrill. And we did an event where it's one that I share because I think it gets the most notoriety in a lot of the things that we've done. We did an event where we took our entire employee base, divided them up into 4 teams, put them on limo buses, and we gave them $250. And they had to go out into the community and do as many random acts of kindness as they could do in 3 hours with $250, a whole team. And it was a competition. We have channel chips, and they're poker chips, they're branded channel. And we give those out all year long to employees, and they can exchange it for channel swag or Cedar Point tickets or gift cards or appliances or whatever. We have a catalog. And so it was a competition that we did. And in that 3 hours worth of time, they did over 100 random acts of kindness and brought back money. And so that we had to keep track. There were a lot of details to it, but a lot of things in the community. So we do a lot for Thrill that's kind of unique and different. And I always like to push the envelope. My HR director, the poor woman, when I say, hey, could you come into my office and bring a pad and paper? I just know everything in her melts because I get these wild ideas in my head and I'm always spinning them. And I'm like, hey, I want to do this. And let's do a food truck challenge, and let's do this big thing, and let's do this over here. And so we do a lot. And part of Thrilling too, in a more somber way, is we have employees who have struggled over the years, have had illnesses, and we just recently lost an employee, a lifer. And so we do a lot to support them. We are naming our training room after this person that we lost, and we're going to have a kind of a ceremony. And so Thrill is not always the ups, but sometimes it's the downs and what you do with those, and how you take care of both people, internal and external.
I love that thinking. Thank you for sharing that. I'm seeing a couple hand raises out there. Annika, can you share some of the questions?
Yeah, I actually got a text question from Candace Pollock. She's asking Teresa, she says, you clearly have leadership instincts. Do you do anything in particular at this point in your career to grow leadership skills? And if yes, what?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I'm a reader. I really am. And I really choose to be mentored. I'm a mentor myself to some young women and helping them develop their careers and their personal lives. But I always remain in the position of mentee. And so I have some people in my life that mentor me, and that's really important to me. I am involved in a number of different things. I'm involved in YPO and some other things where I'm always trying to learn and glean new things, new information. And I just try to remain teachable, I guess. That's probably key for me as a leader, is I never think that I know it all, because I don't know anything. The people around me that I've hired are far smarter and greater than I am. And they really contribute to any greatness I might have as a leader, is because of them. And so I think just ongoing education and being open-minded. And I will say that over the years, as I've matured as a leader, I've become more not only self-aware, but aware of others. New leaders tend to be big on self-promotion because they feel like they have to be, right? I have to fight for this spot. I have to clamor. I have to tell you how good I am and all the things I'm doing and all the things I'm involved in. I have to really put myself out there all the time. I'll do that if people ask. But other than that, I think over the years I've become a much better listener. a much better questioner of other people. Tell me about you. How did you get here? This is a unique setting because you're asking me questions, but if I could see all of you, I would be doing that. I would be asking you questions. Tell me, how do you cope with this? How do you handle this? What was your journey like? So I think that's really key.
Got it. Good question. Thank you, Candace.
All right, and it looks like Dana has a question, so I will go ahead and unmute. Go ahead, Dana.
Hi. My question is, oh, by the way, you're amazing. This has just been an incredible experience. So I want to thank you. You're one in a million, that's for sure. Where did you learn what you needed to do in order to change the culture? Where did you come up with those activities and the way you related to people? And then my other question is how do you handle like work, life, and family balance? Because you're a pretty busy person.
It's a really good question. They're both great questions. Thank you so much, Dana. I appreciate it. Let me answer the first question. And I'll just say that when I first started, it was more about my own life experience and what do I want? What do I want to feel? What do I want to experience inside the walls? So basically, I took a lot of books that I had read, my own personal experience, my own desires, and some instincts, and really just started, and it sounds crazy, but I made up a lot of stuff. Man, I really did. I just made it up as I went along, and what worked, what stuck, we kept using, and what didn't, we changed. And it wasn't because I had any type of extra smarts. It was just because I was hungry, right? And I wanted answers for myself. So I just started taking things that I had read, things that I had learned, things that I had heard from others, and I started just picking and choosing out of that what I liked and what resonated, and meshing it all together and saying, hey, let's try this thing here. Hey, I'm going to introduce this. And the way of doing those peer reviews, that was never in a book. It was never anywhere. Now, I had read about, in a leadership book, about the transparency and kind of calling people out, if you will, to some extent in those moments. But I had never really read about that exact system. I was just brainstorming, how do I accomplish this? So a lot of trial and error, and maybe more error than trial along the way. But I think at the end of the day, we've fine-tuned a lot of things and we're still growing. To answer your second question about work-life balance, wow, that's so great. I will say that I've not always been good at that. I've not always been great. I was busy building my career, improving myself, and earning respect of others. And I sacrificed some things to do that along the way. So what I will say currently, my husband and I have a few policies in place. My husband, likewise, is the CEO of a successful company headquartered in downtown Cleveland, and Everstream, they're a fiber network provider, service provider in the Midwest. And he also has a second company that he owns. So you get Snip Internet. So you can imagine we're busy people. We have kids. We have a grandbaby. And so we have a couple rules in place, guidelines. One is that neither one of us gets home after 6 or 6:30. It's a rule. No, but you don't get home later than that, ever. As executives, there'd be a tendency to stay in the office late. It's 8 o'clock, it's 8:30, I'll see you at 9. And I've done that in the past. But it's a hard line, non-negotiable here. We get home between 6 and 6:30, and after that, phones down. We don't sit at home on our phones. We'll check emails occasionally, but we have a respect for one another and a respect for our time in such a way that we don't allow things to interrupt that. The second policy that we have is, as executives, we are travelers. Me more than him, quite frankly. I travel a lot internationally, all over the U.S. He travels more regionally. But we have a policy. If either one of us is going to be gone more than 2 days, 2 nights in a row, the other person goes with them for at least a portion of the trip. And
wow, that's awesome.
It served us very well. Yeah, my husband literally was landing in Poland on a Friday, to fly home on a Sunday so that we could adhere to that. And so it's very serious for us, and we take it very seriously. Our mornings here at home, we have an 8-year-old here in the house with us, and so during the school year she has to get up and get ready for school. But in the mornings, we take time in the mornings to spend time together every single morning. Unless one of us is, we have to be at a really early morning meeting or we're catching a flight. Every morning we spend time together, and it matters. So we put those safeguards in place, and that's how you only get balance if you force balance. It's too easy as an executive or as an entrepreneur to be very imbalanced. Work, career, striving, it owns you. And we have purposed as executives that our careers are just a means to an end. Money is just a means to an end. And it's really about the relationships and the legacy and the life that you live and lead and leave for people. So we purpose that, by the way. We're very intentional.
That is awesome advice. You set the bar pretty high. Is there any other questions, Annika?
No, we are out of questions.
Okay. On behalf of myself and my colleagues at Luma, thank you everyone for joining us on this call. Hopefully there's some great nuggets of wisdom and advice that Teresa was able to share with everyone. I know every time I talk to you, Teresa, I always kind of glean different things. So you have a lot of great insights, and thank you very much for sharing them with all of us. And any parting thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you. It's been a really wonderful event. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I never take it lightly when I'm given any type of platform because anytime you're speaking, I believe that you have the opportunity to speak into and over people's lives. And so anytime I get that opportunity, I am honored and humbled by it. The fact that you would even care about my story at all or what I've done or where I'm going is almost unthinkable to me. But I'm so grateful that you do. And I only wish that I could hear so many other stories that are represented here today. But again, I'm so thankful, and I'm always available. Let me say that if someone's on today and you heard something or something struck you, I really make myself available. And so you feel free. You can, if you reach out to my company, you can reach me. Like we're a very open organization. They'll let you write to me. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But depends on if you're selling vacuum cleaners or if you want some insight. But at the end of the day, I'm here and I would love to continue to learn from some of you as well if ever given the opportunity. Thank you so much for having me. It's been delightful, and I wish you all the best. Much, much, much success and love.
Teresa, thank you very much on behalf of all of us. And you are an official Luminary now, so that means going forward, you will be invited to these exclusive events that we have for women like yourself. So
fantastic. I
Teresa,
can't wait to attend.
Have a great evening. Everyone on this call, have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, and everyone take care.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.